The outpost hovered silently against the obsidian canvas of space, its metallic hull reflecting the distant glow of 3 binary stars. Kale had been stationed here for 8 months, 8 months of routine maintenance logs, solitary meals in the cafeteria, and the quiet hum of machinery that had become the soundtrack to his existence. He was calibrating the communications array when the message arrived: report to Administrative Quarter 7, Level 12. 2200 hours. V. Zyrith. Kale's heart quickened. Vexa Zyrith was the regional operations manager, a being of rare elegance and formidable intellect. In the handful of times he'd seen her during corporate briefings, she commanded every room with an effortless authority that made everyone else seem to fade into the background. She was Zolothan, a species known for their bioluminescence and graceful, six-limbed physiology. Her skin shimmered with intricate patterns that shifted like auroras, and her voice carried harmonics that made humans instinctively lean closer to listen. Kale had never spoken to her directly. He showered and changed into fresh clothes, his mind spiraling with possibilities. Had he made an error in his reports? Was he being reassigned? The uncertainty gnawed at him as he made his way through the gleaming corridors of the administrative sector. When he reached her office, the door slid open with a soft whisper. The space was nothing like he expected, not cold and corporate, but warm. Soft amber lighting cast long shadows across walls adorned with crystalline art that seemed to contain living light. A viewport dominated one side, offering an unobstructed view of the nebula beyond. And there, silhouetted against that cosmic backdrop, stood Vexa. She turned to face him, and Kale forgot how to breathe. She wore an elegant, flowing garment that seemed woven from starlight itself, its fabric catching and reflecting the ambient glow. Her primary eyes, 2 large, luminous orbs, fixed on him with unmistakable interest. Her secondary eyes, positioned along her temples, flickered with what might have been amusement. "Kale," she said, her voice carrying those mesmerizing harmonics. "Thank you for coming. I have something unusual to discuss with you." She gestured toward a seat near her desk, and he moved forward, acutely aware of every step, every breath. Up close, he could see the faint shimmer of her skin, the way her patterns shifted with subtle emotions, blues and purples and soft golds dancing across her surface like thoughts made visible. "I hope I haven't done anything wrong," he ventured carefully. A smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Quite the opposite, actually. I've been reviewing your performance evaluations. You're exceptional at what you do." She paused, her gaze traveling across his face in a way that made his skin warm. "Tell me, Kale, how do you feel about the assignment here?" "It's been quiet," he admitted. "But meaningful work." "Quiet," she repeated thoughtfully. "Yes. I imagine it must be quite isolating for a human. Your species thrives on connection, doesn't it? On companionship?" Kale felt heat rise to his cheeks. "Sometimes." Vexa moved closer, her multiple appendages moving with liquid grace. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, more intimate. "I've been reviewing more than just your work records, Kale. I've watched how you interact with the crew. You're thoughtful. Genuine. Rare qualities out here." Her luminous eyes held his. "I find myself curious about you." The air between them seemed to shimmer with possibility. Over the next 3 weeks, Kale found himself gravitating toward Vexa's presence whenever their paths crossed. A lingering glance during a staff meeting. A brief conversation in the observation lounge where she asked him about Earth's constellations. An invitation to review a technical proposal together that lasted 3 hours and somehow became something more personal, questions about his family, his dreams, his reasons for leaving home. Vexa was unlike anyone he'd ever met. Beneath her professional composure lay a quick wit and genuine warmth. She had a habit of tilting her head when she listened, her patterns shifting to soft blues and greens that he came to recognize as contentment. She laughed at his terrible jokes about zero-gravity physics. She remembered the small things he mentioned in passing. Their interactions became the brightest part of his days. But they also became increasingly charged with tension neither of them addressed directly. A moment in the corridor where her appendage brushed against his shoulder, lingering just a fraction too long. The way she'd lean toward him when they talked, as if drawn by gravity. The deliberate way she'd ask about his evening plans, her eyes bright with unspoken implications. Then came the evening in the botanical gardens, a section of the outpost dedicated to growing earth plants for the human stationed there, alongside Zolocian specimens that glowed softly in the darkness. They'd arranged to meet there under the pretense of discussing a maintenance issue, but the ease of their conversation made clear this was something else entirely. "I've been thinking about something you said," Vexa began, moving among the luminescent flowers. Her skin reflected their glow, making her seem almost ethereal. "About how humans feel loneliness out here. That they need, more than routine." Cale's pulse quickened. "I remember. I wonder if it's just humans who feel that way." She turned to face him, and her patterns were cycling through colors he'd never seen before, deep violets and shimmering silvers. "I wonder if perhaps I've been lonely too." He took a step closer. "Vexa. On my world, we have a tradition," she continued softly. "A moment of genuine connection between two people, unguarded and unhurried. It's called Velsaris, a harmony of souls." Her secondary eyes flickered. "I believe humans might call it something like being fully present with another person. Seeing them. Wanting to be seen in return. Is that what this is?" Cale asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What's been happening between us?" Her appendages moved with deliberate grace, one extending toward his face with surprising gentleness. "I think it might be. And I find myself hoping you feel it too." He reached up, his human fingers brushing gently against her appendage. The contact sent electricity through him, not painful, but alive with sensation. Her skin was warm and smooth, and where they touched, her patterns flared brilliant gold. "I do," he breathed. "Since that first meeting in your office." Vexa's expression softened into something vulnerable and deeply genuine. "Good. Because I find I've become very impatient with maintaining professional distance, Cale. I think about you constantly. I make excuses to find you in the corridors. I reread your technical report simply to see your handwriting." She paused, and for the first time, she seemed uncertain. "Is that acceptable? In human courtship, is such directness appreciated or considered aggressive?" Cale couldn't help but smile. "Where I come from, honesty is rare enough to be precious. And what you just admitted? It's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me." Her patterns blazed with joy, cycling through every color at once. When she smiled, it was radiant, unguarded and real in a way that made him understand she was taking a risk by being so open with him. "Then I propose," she said, her voice steady and sure, "that we stop pretending this is merely professional interest. I would like to spend time with you, Cale. True time. Learning you. Understanding what this feeling between us could become." Vexa arranged everything with careful precision. She requested use of the upper observatory, a privilege rarely granted to junior staff, but she was, after all, the regional operations manager. When Cale arrived at the appointed time, he found the vast dome transparent, offering an unobstructed view of the nebula that dominated their sector of space. But what truly made him pause was Vexa herself. She'd changed out of her standard uniform into something flowing and elegant, a garment that seemed to shift between deep blue and silver with her movements. Her skin patterns were deliberately amplified, creating a display of bioluminescence that was simply breathtaking. When she saw him, her patterns flared with warm golds and soft pinks. "Hello," she said simply, and that one word carried so much more. "Hi," he replied, suddenly feeling very human and very ordinary in comparison. She moved toward him with that liquid grace, her appendages creating gentle arcs in the air. I'm nervous, she admitted. I want this to be. I want you to feel how special this is. How special you are to me. I already do, he said, and meant it. They spent the evening talking, really talking, in a way that felt both intimate and deeply natural. Vexa told him about her homeworld, about the dual moons that rose in their night sky and the way her people gathered under them to share stories. She spoke of her childhood, her ambitions, her fears of being trapped in corporate hierarchies when what she truly wanted was to explore, to discover, to feel truly alive. Cale spoke of Earth, not the sanitized version in corporate briefings, but the real version. He told her about his mother's garden, about the way morning light looked through autumn leaves, about his reasons for leaving, a desire to be more than ordinary, to find something worth the sacrifice of distance and loneliness. But I didn't expect to find it, he said softly, in someone like you. Vexa's appendages curled gently around his hand, careful and exploratory. Tell me what you feel when we're together. He thought carefully before answering. Like I'm waking up. Like all these months of quiet routine were just me waiting to feel alive again. When you look at me, I feel seen. Understood. Like someone finally bothered to really look. Her patterns cycled through brilliant, joyful colors. She lifted his hand and brought it to where her heart would be, against the glowing center of her chest, where her patterns burned brightest. Beneath his palm, he could feel something like a heartbeat, though with a rhythm different from human pulse. It was warm and alive and utterly genuine. This is what I feel when I am near you, she said. My heart choosing to accelerate its rhythm. My patterns broadcasting what I cannot contain, joy, longing, hope. As the night deepened and the stars wheeled overhead, they moved closer. When Vexa tilted her head to look at him, her luminous eyes reflecting the cosmic light, Cale leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if this crossed some boundary he didn't understand. Instead, she met him halfway. Their kiss was unlike anything he'd experienced, soft and questioning at first, then deeper as they both surrendered to the moment. Her skin was warm and alive beneath his hands, her appendages gentle but insistent as they curved around him, holding him close. It tasted like starlight and possibility, like every lonely moment on this distant outpost suddenly made sense because it had led him here. When they finally separated, both breathless, Vexa rested her forehead against his. On Zelosha, she whispered, this would mean something profound. A commitment, a promise. I'm certain you have your own meanings for such contact. I need you to tell me, what does this mean to you, Cale? What are you feeling? He smiled against her skin. I'm feeling like I don't want this night to end. I'm feeling like maybe, if you wanted, neither of us would have to be lonely anymore. Her patterns flashed brilliant white, then settled into warm, contented golds. I think, she said softly, that I've been falling in love with you, piece by piece, since that first meeting. And now I'm convinced you're falling too. The discovery was both inevitable and devastating. 3 weeks of stolen moments, quiet conversations in hidden sections of the station, careful touches that left them both aching for more, nights spent in the observatory where they could talk without being overheard. They were cautious, professional in public, but there was only so much they could hide. It was the communications officer who noticed the pattern in their schedules. Word traveled quickly through the small community of the outpost, and by the time Vexa discovered the rumors, they'd already reached corporate headquarters on the station's main world. The notification came through official channels, a violation of fraternization policies. A superior officer and subordinate staff member engaging in inappropriate conduct. An investigation to follow. Potential reassignments pending review. Vexa called him to her office, and the moment Cale entered, he knew something had shifted. Her patterns were muted, cycling through anxious purples and troubled grays. They know, she said without preamble. I received the notification 2 hours ago. There's going to be a formal inquiry. Cale felt the floor tilt beneath him. What does that mean? It means, Vexa said, her voice carefully controlled, that they're questioning whether my judgment has been compromised. Whether our relationship represents a conflict of interest. It means they're considering reassigning you to another station. Her patterns flickered with pain. It means I may have endangered your career for my own selfishness. It's not selfish, Cale said firmly. Everything we've done, every moment, that's been mutual. That's been honest. I don't regret any of it. But you should, Vexa said, and there was anguish in her voice. Your career. My career means nothing if I'm alone, he interrupted. Vexa, I came out here to find something that mattered. I found it in you. I found it in us. She rose and moved to the viewport, her silhouette outlined against the nebula. There's a possibility, she said quietly. A way this could be handled without reassignments or investigations. If one of us files a formal statement saying the relationship was a misunderstanding, a moment of poor judgment, it could be dismissed as a minor incident. The rumors would fade. Your career would be protected. Cale's heart sank. At what cost? At the cost of us, she said, and he could see the shimmer of something like tears on her luminous skin. Which is already what the cost might be, if they find against us. But at least this way, you wouldn't suffer. He moved toward her, unable to bear the distance. And you? What happens to you if you take all the blame? Vexa turned to face him, and her expression was both heartbreaking and resolute. I return to corporate. I likely transfer out system. I accept the consequences of caring about someone the way I care about you. No. Cale took her hand, her appendage, and held it firmly. We're not doing that. We're not sacrificing one of us. Then what do you propose? Her voice was hollow with despair. That we fight? That we battle corporate policy and regulations? That we risk everything on the hope that two beings from different species, in different positions of authority, can somehow navigate the impossible? Yes, Cale said simply. Yes, exactly that. Vexa stared at him, and slowly, her patterns began to shift. First to blue, then to gold, then to colors that seemed to encompass the entire spectrum. You would do that? For me? For us? I would, he said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. Because what we have is real, Vexa. And real things are worth fighting for. She pulled him close, her appendages curling around him with fierce protectiveness. Then we fight together, she whispered against his hair. I will not be sent away while you suffer here. We present them with a united front. We make them understand that this is not a corporate scandal, it's two conscious beings choosing each other, despite all obstacles. The hearing was held via holographic transmission, with corporate representatives reviewing the case from the comfort of climate-controlled offices on the primary world. They seemed entirely unprepared for Vexa's approach. She stood beside Cale, not behind her desk as a manager, but beside him as an equal. Her skin patterns were brilliantly displayed, her voice steady and unapologetic as she made her statement. I am the regional operations manager, she began. And I take full responsibility for my actions. However, I will not apologize for them. Cale and I discovered a genuine connection, something rare in this profession, in this life among the stars. We proceeded with caution and discretion, but we proceeded because the alternative was denying something that has brought both of us profound happiness. The senior representative leaned forward, skeptical. Your position requires objectivity, Vexa. A personal relationship compromises that. On the contrary, Vexa replied. It has enhanced my understanding of what matters in human and Zolocian relations. It has shown me firsthand the potential for genuine connection between our species. If anything, it has made me a better manager by teaching me the value of seeing those under my command not as subordinates, but as full beings with needs and hopes beyond their job titles. The representative turned to Cale. And you? Do you feel your position was influenced by your manager's authority over you? Cale met his gaze steadily. No, sir. Our relationship developed outside of work. And I recognize that Vexa is stepping down from direct management of my department, effective immediately, to address any actual conflicts of interest. But I won't pretend that what we feel isn't real or that we regret it. There was a long silence. Then, surprisingly, the youngest representative, a Valtherian whose species was known for progressive values, spoke up. I believe, she said slowly, that we're applying outdated policies to evolving situations. The era of strict fraternization bans is giving way to clear conflict of interest protocols and transparency. If both parties were honest, if there was no abuse of power, perhaps we should focus on establishing boundaries rather than punishment. The debate that followed was lengthy, but slowly, the consensus shifted. By the time the hearing concluded, a decision emerged: Vexa would be transferred laterally to a different department with no loss of rank or pay. Kale would be reassigned to a new supervisor. There would be mandatory relationship disclosure to HR, but no formal sanctions. As they walked back to their quarters afterward, neither quite believing they'd survived the ordeal, Vexa took his hand. They gave us a chance, she said wonderingly. Against all probability, they gave us a chance. We gave us a chance, Kale corrected. By refusing to walk away. That night, they returned to the observatory, their place. The same viewport, the same infinite stars, but everything felt different now. Lighter. Real in a way that made the future seem possible rather than impossible. Vexa leaned against him, her patterns cycling through peaceful golds and serene blues. I have a confession, she said quietly. That first night, when I called you to my office? It wasn't random. I had already noticed you. Already admired you. I was terrified of risking my position, so I told myself it was just professional appreciation. But my heart knew better. My patterns knew better. Kale turned to face her, smiling. I fell for you in that office. Completely and irreversibly. I was just trying to be respectful of the professional distance. There will be no distance now, Vexa said with gentle certainty. No barriers between us. Just this, whatever we choose to build together, written in the stars. And as they stood together beneath the cosmic tapestry, two beings from different worlds who had found each other against impossible odds, Kale understood something fundamental: love wasn't about the same species or the same expectations. It was about two people choosing, again and again, to see each other. To fight for each other. To build something beautiful in the darkness. In the endless night of space, they had found their light in one another.